Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to the Rangers Journal podcast. I'm your host for tonight, Scott McKay, and I'm delighted to be joined by my partner in crime, Doug. Doug, how you doing, pal?
I'm good, thanks. I'm good. Hello, everybody. Hope everyone's well.
This is a comments-driven podcast that me and Doug's decided to do tonight. So, any questions, fire them in, and use basically pick the topic. Doug, we'll kind of pick apart today's episodes. Obviously, with the Conor Barron signing, we've had. We're going to do a breakdown on that on Monday. The Conor Barron signing, and then there's been the news of Rangers not being able to play at Ibrox for roughly the first month. What's your take on the two aspects?
Well, it's great to see Barron finally over the line. I think we've been expecting that for a couple of days now, so that's good to see. Good signing. You know, young player fits in with the overall mould, but bonuses of being Scottish, and various people have touched on things like he knows the league and he's played in the league, and you'll know about Rangers in the club and all that kind of stuff. So that's really positive. The stuff about Ibrox, I mean, obviously disappointing not being able to play at the club, at the stadium. Sorry, so it's disappointing. It'll be frustrating for obviously match-going fans. I mean, I don't get to loads of matches myself, so it doesn't affect me as much. Which is maybe why I'm not as raging as I've seen a lot of people be. I think my main takeaway though is I do feel like some are being overly harsh on the board around this issue. It seems like it's not, from what I've gathered, it's basically a shipping delay from the stuff coming. And I don't know how much control really they could have over that kind of thing. So they're maybe getting it a bit more in the neck than they deserve. But I think that reflects, the overall frustration that still is in Rangers fans that will only be sated by a winning club. So,
Aye, definitely. Daymax come in and he says that he's really pleased to see players joining, but he's slightly concerned about the volume of players potentially leaving a team with little time to gel. Especially with this move that we're now not going to be playing at Ibrox. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's not a situation that can't be resolved. It's a situation that you just play your first kind of league matches away from home, and if you get good results in all of them, then you can balance out the kind of rest of the season. But it's the Champions League games, isn't it, Doug, that's going to be having, with so much turmoil on the park, the change off the park as well. It's not ideal, is it?
No, definitely not. You want, obviously, with new players coming in and a high volume, you want things to be as settled as they can be. So, obviously, I mean, we spent, for anyone that didn't see it, we did a pod the other day about exactly that, players settling in. And we talked around all the different things that can impact that, from language barriers and culture and leaders being able to settle folk in. But one of the things that settles in is obviously getting to know your surroundings and getting comfortable in your surroundings. Yeah. So if they're not going to be playing in the stadium, that impacts that. I mean, it's difficult, obviously, as much as I would love to be a professional footballer, I did not achieve that calling. So I don't know, how big of an impact that will have on the players themselves. Ironically, the bigger impact might actually be on opposition players, particularly in Europe, because Ibrox has got such a good reputation in terms of, being a fortress, being a place that you go that, you're going to have the fear put into you by the fans. So it could actually be that it's the opposition that we need to worry about the most, because if they're suddenly going, oh, we're not having to go to Ibrox, actually, we're having to go to this other stadium, it maybe takes a bit of edge off. So that could be a downside.
I think the kind of logical option's Murrayfield, to be honest, because I think the extra ticket money that you get for income can kind of pay for the hire of the stadium. But let's hope it doesn't affect us too much and we can get a resolution to it. So Harry Chapman's come in with the first question. He says, any news on Albion Romani? All I seen was maybe this morning for Chris Jack on the Rangers review. He said that a bid hadn't went in, but Rangers are interested. He is on a list of players. So that's all I know. Don't quote me on that. It might be for a different pod, but I'm pretty sure it was Chris Jack on the Rangers review this morning. KW's come in, Doug, and he's asked, do we need to come on to talk about your strategy? Now, this is actually quite an interesting point. We done a podcast on it a couple of weeks ago, speaking about kind of Comanche football and identity. Do you think it's something that needs to come out in the press and say, I want us to play this way, or do you think it's just pretty much see it on the eye when we see it?
I mean, I'm sure he'll mention it to some degree, with a whole group of new players coming in, and particularly if we lose, well, we've already lost a core of key players, and potentially losing more. I think it lends naturally that journalists are going to ask him about how he's going to play with all these new players and new team. Ask him if he now thinks he's got the players to play he wants and things like that. So I think we will get bits of that in sort of early press conferences and things at the beginning of the season. I doubt he'll go too much into it. He does seem like he's a bit more Gerrard-like, and he wants to hold things back. He doesn't want to give away all his secrets, and obviously he's done that a couple of times where he said things like, "Oh, I'm not going to tell you that because then the opposition will know," sort of thing. He's done that a couple of times, so I imagine he'll keep it general. But yeah, the proof is in the pudding. Ultimately, it doesn't matter what he says; it's what happens on the pitch. So again, we touched on that, I think, in the player settling pod as well, about the idea of fans seeing the outcome on the field, and being able to see progress on the field in terms of a direction, and that in terms of something that will allow them to give the new players more time. So I think the main thing is about seeing it on the pitch. I'd rather be able to see things on the field and see, right, I can see what formation we're doing here, and we're moving this and we're switching this, than just have him spouting about a bunch of stuff about what he wants to do. I want to see it actually happening.
Aye, definitely. JD's come in with a point on it, and he says, I think Coman should park doing that, because if supporters don't see it immediately, he's creating pressure that doesn't have to be there. It's a very valid point, to be fair. He's also said when the team slots into what Coman wants, then maybe we have a better time to talk about it. Now, what we've seen on it, it's very... I think he likes playing sort of fast-paced stuff in terms of players, very similar to Ange when he was at Celtic, in terms of players taking throw-ins quickly, not countless times we've seen Borna Barisic and Tavernier waiting, players waiting to give them the ball to take a throw-in instead of just throwing it and getting the game underway. I know he likes to play fast-paced football, but I don't really know what else there is to it, if I'm being honest. It should be an interesting summer ahead to see. I think by going by signings, we'll be able to see what we're going to be playing like next season. We're definitely going to have wingers again. I think we can see that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think he does definitely likes a good pace of the game, and he likes players to carry the ball at speed as well. We're bringing in, and we're being linked with a lot of players who are good ball carriers, and he does like a bit of that kind of big switch from his deep line midfielder to a winger. I think that's one of the reasons he liked Lundstrom, because Lundstrom was fond of that kind of pass. And I mean, and I personally, the thing about the throw-ins, I mean, I never got upset about it before. I know there was a period of time where it seemed to be Rangers fans were furious about the whole Tav taking all the throw-ins kind of thing, but I understood what was happening. Most of the time when he was running across, he was coming from left to right, so he was getting back to position essentially, and that's why he took the throw-in, because you want your team to be set from a throw-in. However, I think that there's benefits in Scottish football for us to playing quicker throw-ins, because that's how we're going to get teams out of position. Basically, we should be playing fast, technical football, moving the ball about quickly and moving it around the pitch, either broadly or in like triangles, to work the ball around players, because spaces are tight. And so the only way you're going to make yourself that extra yard that you need to get off a shot or to find a pass is by pulling someone out of position. And you can do that by keeping the ball moving across the pitch. And and around. And that's why I think, we've had success when we had those sort of wingers and players that were quite free in terms of moving around. So like Kent, Morelos, and whoever played on the right tended to move about a lot. Morelos in particular was very mobile. He was all over the pitch. One of my biggest criticisms when we played back then was that we didn't have any midfielders that would run into the box, and so we ended up with nobody in the box. Have Morelos out wide doing lovely things with Kent, but no one to cross into. But just why I loved Arfield, because he would fill that space.
Yeah.
So that's something I'm hoping that we'll see from this game from Clement. Sorry, is moving the ball about, midfielders that actually run and make late runs. Because we'll get goals that way by having players out of position through confusion.
D-Max come in. Bit of question. He says, if Cantwell moves on, how much would you consider to be a decent fee? I'd be looking for 5 million, considering he's got a good reputation down south. For me, I would probably take 1.5 to between 1.5 and 3 million. I don't think Cantwell's properly arrived in a Rangers jersey. I think he's far too inconsistent. His stuff off the park, the Schussberg gun, it just immediately puts me off it. It's not of a standard of a Ranger for me. That's beside the point. That's more emotional than judgment here. But in terms of a fee, I would probably take my one between 1.5 and 3 million, shake hands and say goodbye. I think the relationship with the manager's indifferent, and I don't really think it's worked. What about you, Doug?
Yeah, I definitely think there's questions over what the manager thinks of him. I feel like he's one of these players that, the manager might like him in terms of what he can potentially do, because he shows potential here and there. But how much does he follow in instructions, and how much does he actually follow through with his potential? I'm not sure. Like a couple of million is probably fair. Like you say, he's not been sparkling while he's been here. He's been fine, but I think that's still enough to get a couple of million for him. There'll be championship teams that'll take him. So I would think 2 or 3 million, maybe, probably at best.
Aye, definitely. I think probably a team like Blackburn, something like that.
Yeah.
I'll put this one to you, Doug. I'm not going to answer this one because we have got a TAV pod coming out. We're recording it tomorrow. Who will be captain when TAV leaves? We'll come on and bring in a captain now. We've already kind of covered this topic on what's the ingredients of a Rangers captain, so you should head over and watch that. Just a quick shameless plug. Who would you give the armband to, Doug?
I mean, I think most people's first thought is Jack Butland because of the way he sort of conducted himself last season. I would have no problem with that. My only concern is obviously, will he still be here come this beginning of the season? I don't think there's a standout candidate off the top of my head. I'm literally pulling up the list just to go over all the names, and nobody screams out to me yet. Definitely him, apart from probably Butland, who's obviously got a lot of experience. In that, I am in the train of thought that a lot of people are in, that I kind of prefer the captain to be an outfield player. I don't really mind which outfield player. I know some people are like really keen on it being like a midfielder, so he's got like access to everyone and that kind of thing. I think that kind of thinking for me probably comes more from them remembering other good captains that they like. But like I said, I'm looking through the list. Butland jumps out. I mean, I would love someone like Leon Balogun, but I don't think I want the captain to be someone that's playing all the time, ideally. So that kind of rules him out. But I think he'd be a great vice captain, maybe. But yeah, I mean, I'm looking down the list right now, and no one really screams captain to me. So I would think that person's maybe it to come in.
The favourite amongst the fans seems to be John Sterling, and I think this is purely down to his comments up at Dundee after the 0-0 draw.
He's the favourite for every job.
100%, aye, 100%. He's a favourite amongst the support, But no, I think no, because of he's not got a set position. He's got a bit of an injury record. What do you think?
I just think he's a wee bit young, maybe, in terms of experience. Because as we see from the abuse that Tavernier gets, the captain needs to be someone that will be able to handle all that, and that's putting quite a lot onto a young lad's shoulders. There's also the fact that I reckon, and that maybe this will be just a general problem going forward, but ideally we're maybe selling him next season if he has another belting season. So I think that's another potential problem. Again, if you're going to go for the transfer model that we have, you need to pick the player that's ideally I would like to pick the player that I think is going to be here for a little bit of time, both to let them settle in as captain and get the best out of it, but also to give a bit of continuity ideally. So yeah, that's why.
What do you think of potentially Hans Vanaken, the Club Brugge captain that won silverware under come on? His name's been lifted maybe once or twice, and I think it was just kind of laughed off. But could you see somebody that maybe Clement's worked with before coming in?
Yeah, I mean, if he brings people in, then there could be a candidate in there. I mean, I could see if we were to sign Paddy McNair, he would be a good candidate, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I reckon that all the signings we're doing at the moment, like, are young players who are still to reach their kind of, or who are sort of early in their journey. I think what we'll see later on, once the Euros is done and the transfer market picks up, is that's probably when we'll start buying some slightly older players, who are maybe sort of between 20 and 25, because the market will have settled down and players will be, and once the money starts moving and things like that, I think that's when we'll maybe start to see some of those types of signings. So that that could be when the captain candidate comes in, because it doesn't need to be, again, if the idea is we're doing clean slate and going for a brand new era, then it doesn't need to be someone that's already here and has been here. It can be someone brand new.
Kenny McLean, would you fancy him? Yeah, captain in Norwich.
Yeah,
good experience.
Yep, absolutely. Could see that.
Could see it. Obviously, he's been linked back on follow again tonight, and see with Loyal, he's one of the in the know guys on the message board that says that the club are definitely interested in McLean. So it would be interesting. Quick change of subject. D-Mac has come in again. Doug, do you think the manager fancies Matondo? That's a good question.
I think Matondo's like a lot of our players, to be honest. He's a good player, but he's not consistent enough. I can see him, if he's still here, then he becomes the kind of the Scott Wright, or a Scott Wright type of the squad in terms of a second choice. I think he's actually, I think he could potentially be really good as a player who comes on from the bench, because if you're putting him on against a tired team, he is rapid, and that does cause, he's got that, he's a lot like Sakala in a way. I prefer Sakala to Matondo, but I think they are very similar in terms of they've got that pace, they fire at defences and cause problems. He's just not quite clinical enough. But again, maybe it's probably unlikely because he's already been here for 2 years and not gotten that much better. But maybe with better players around him, he finds another level. But yeah, ultimately, I want to see more consistency from the player.
I think Matondo's biggest challenge for me is making the step up from bench warmer to starter. I think if he can do that, he went through a spell when Seema first got injured and he was contributing numbers. I don't think his numbers can be argued against. I think he's a relatively good player when he's on his day. But then you need to look at wages, fee we paid from your lip. I mean, there's somebody saying Sakala had a good goal run. I would probably still rather have Sakala than Matondo, to be brutally honest, because Matondo seems to get a run the team. You think he's picking up the bat to take it and run, and then he gets injured. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. The big thing about Sakala, I mean, a lot of fans turned against him because of his misses against Celtic. Because it's the same with any player. If you make big mistakes against Celtic, then half the fans will just be done with you regardless. And ultimately, I think the other thing was that we got such a good offer for him. In terms of, it wasn't crazy money, but it was a good, solid offer for a player that ultimately, had that inconsistency in him. So therefore, I think we were kind of forced to sell him, really, just because it was a good value. In any other circumstance, I'd have happily kept him. I mean, he's doing great in Saudi. He's banging goals in. Apparently, Gerrard wants to sign him now for his team as well. So he's a player I'd happily have still had here. I reckon he'd have probably got about 10, 15 goals, a good handful of assists last season if he'd been here. But in terms of the fans' perspective, the misses against Celtic did him damage, and then just that general inconsistency. So when that offer came in, I think it was the right decision to sell him.
Yeah,
probably at the end of the day, but I would happily have still had him.
Apparently, his Lynx goal on Saudi, Stevie G's looking to get a band back together. He's not only interested in Tarvin Goldson, he's interested in bringing Fashion Junior back as well into Atletico back, because he's had such a good return over it.
Yep.
So it'd be interesting to see if he gets that move. Paul's come in with a wee bit of a left field question here. Would you take Pepe on a free? No, I would absolutely love this guy in. He's an absolute warrior right back. He's still playing for Portugal at Euros now. Is it realistic? No, absolutely not. But would you take Pepe?
I mean, if we had all the money, we could have Pepe and Ramos as centre backs. Ramos is also available now, so I mean that would be an ancient but epic back too.
100%.
Plus, I think I put out as well on Twitter that if we were to keep Tavernier and sign Ramos, we'd have the two highest scoring defenders in the world in our team. So we'd be living the dream. I mean, you talk about signing captains. There's a perfect person right there. You couldn't do much better. He maybe is pushing it age wise, but then I mean, he's still playing international level. He still plays in Europe. And I'm sure, what was it? Did he not play? Who was it he was with? Did we not play him recently as well?
Porto.
Was he still with Porto?
Still with Porto, I think, aye.
Because I remember we played him and we were talking about he was there the last time we played Porto, and that was like 20 years before or something. You could certainly do worse, because like I say, he's still performing at a high level. So, but yeah, I don't think it's a realistic one. I'm sure he'll be appearing in a Saudi and or Saudi or MLS team at some point soon.
100%. I just remember when we played them in the Europa League, Morelos absolutely bodied them.
Yeah, well, JD's just saying in the as his comment there on screen, he get PTSD coming to Ibrox. So
that's it. And then Hummel's right. I'm drawing a line at he's kind of centre backs now, right? Hummel's isn't going to be a Rangers player next season.
Do people not remember how bad he was against us? We can't be having him. that air swipe for Tavernier's equaliser at Ibrox, nah.
That's it. Paul Murphy came in with one. He says, with all our 10s up for sale according to Chris Jack, could we go in with 4-3-3 with a flat midfield to match Celtic? And then he's obviously come in and he says about Kenny McLean for captain if he comes in. What do you think? Do you think there could be a change with the wingers coming in that we're signing? That we could be going with a flat midfield 3 again?
Yeah, it's definitely a possibility. I know Kai's really keen on that idea, and I think I probably would be as well. I think it would probably make a big difference in the Old Firm games in particular. I think it also gives options for. I think sometimes when people talk about formations, they get too stuck on the idea that, once you've got a formation, that's all you do and it never changes. But I think if you have players that are adaptable, which is another thing that seems to be a trait of a lot of the players we're looking at, they seem to be able to play in multiple positions. So I think it gives us the ability to kind of adapt in game as well as from game to game. And some of when you're looking at the players we've got, I think it's going to give us the ability to do that. So we might start in a 4-3-3. They might start flat, but they could move slightly. We could adjust to a 3-5 formation, which we've done things like that before as well. So I think, or at least I hope, that we're going to become a more tactically flexible team next season.
Aye, definitely. I think it's something that needs to be done. I don't think the double pivot and the 10's worked, if I'm being honest. I think it's a 4-2-3-1's quite a dated formation now. And with the creativity we had out wide as well, I think it was working until Cortez got injured, and then I think the wheel kind of fell off the bus, so to speak. So D-Mac's asking how much do we think we'll spend in a big target this summer? Spending sensibly at the moment, but I wonder how big we'll go on a main target. Any thoughts?
Well, the rumours have been that we're fronting up €6 million for Romani, so you're talking about 5 and a bit million there. I would imagine that's going to be at the kind of upper end unless something amazing comes along. Realistically, we just don't have the money to be spending much more than that. I think you could push the boat out for the right player, like we did when we signed Kent, if they want to go for a statement signing, but it would absolutely need to be someone that really, is really as guaranteed as possible is going to come in and absolutely set the pitch aflame if we're going to spend that kind of money. So I think I do personally think that up front is the one of the areas to spend that money on. I think we've got decent defenders already. We've brought in some decent defenders. We've got a decent base in midfield that we can add to. But sort of the wing positions and up front is where we've consistently struggled to get goals and things like that. So if they are going to spend money, that's probably where I would spend it. I think £5-6 million pound is probably going to be the upper end of anything that we do spend.
What do you think about Cyril Dessers? Do you think he's staying or going?
Well, if he's injured, he's probably staying because there'll be no one will want to buy him. I personally think we should keep him for two reasons. Well, I suppose it's only really one reason. I think we should keep him because we're doing a big refit. We're getting rid of a load of players. Bringing in a lot of players, and if you're going to have a big shifty like that, then you want to minimise the amount of non-required changes that you're making. I think, and when you're looking at players, you want to look at who did well last season, and Dessers has got to be in probably the top 2 or 3, definitely top 5 of players that did well last season. At the end of the day, I've actually been slightly shocked. I knew people wanted a better player, and we do ultimately want to get someone maybe that can be more clinical at times, given the amount of misses he's had. But at the same time, I've been slightly surprised at how quickly a lot of people are to want to just get rid of a 20-goal striker, which is not something we've had for a long time. He was also, he was in his first season with the club, a season that he started injured, and so had to work his way in. So I'm sitting here thinking to myself, right, well, we're already losing 2 players in the forward positions. and Britain. We're going to be bringing in 2 new strikers anyway, presumably. I mean, it looks like if Ramani comes and we sign the lad from Morocco, then that's 2 strikers in the door there. So having someone that's already settled, is already familiar with the league, and because of that 1 year's experience, ideally he will improve next year because he'll be used to all of those things, and so can hopefully get a little bit better. I expect him to do the same, if not better, next season. So I think we can look to bring in players that have maybe got that slightly better level of clinicalness, so that we can make sure that we get goals in the big games when we need them. But at the same time, obviously you can make substitutes and things at mid-game. So if Dessus is on a game and he's having one of those where he can't hit a barn door, take him off and put on someone else. If you've got multiple strikers scoring 10 to 20 goals, which is what we want, then that should balance itself out in terms of them all getting goals when we need them. Part of the problem with the level of frustration over Dessus is because, again, we had him, we had Tavernier, and for a period before his injury, we had Sima scoring goals. Once Sima got injured, you've only got the 2 people scoring goals, and so it increases the pressure on them to get those goals. But yeah, I'd be keeping him for that reason. I think he'll do the same, if not better. And then if he does, we should still be able to get a reasonable fee if we get rid of him at the end of next season.
Fair point. For me, I don't think I think if he stays, he plays second or third fiddle. I don't think he wants to play second or third fiddle. I think for the wages and the cost to him, I think if an offer comes in, he's away, to be brutally honest, regardless of the injury. Depending on what the injury is, but there's not really been any kind of murmurings about it, if I'm being honest. So for me, I sell him and bring in Shankland, but everybody knows my feelings on Lawrence Shankland, so let's not open that topic up. Rangers 55 is asking, do we think that we've got a good sell-on clause on Sakala? I personally don't think. I think the money we got for Saudi last year was a very good fee. And with the age, I think Sakala's 27, 28 now. I don't think we were selling him with a view of another big move for him. So that would kind of answer that one. Do you this one, Doug? What do you think? Think Clement will go 2 up top if he goes to be in midfield?
I doubt it. I think with his like for wingers, we'll probably stay with the one up front. Whether he does that all the time, I don't know. He may have other options. But from what I'm aware of, I'm not sure if he's done 2 up top a lot in the past or not. I'd have to double check, to be honest. But I don't think so. It's not really it's not really the fashion right now, just in general. But yeah, I think his like for wingers will probably have the 3 with the wingers out wide, and then a main guy in the middle.
Aye, definitely. I think a 4-3-3 is definitely the way we're going to be going next season. Paul's come in with a comment there, Raskin, Barron and Diamandi. It's an improvement on John Lundstrom and Ryan Jack, but I don't think that's going to be our starting midfield 3 next season, Paul, if I'm being honest. Doug, how much do you think Bojan Majowski would cost? This guy is a bit of a favourite among the Rangers fans. I think most people would rather have him than Shankland. But for me, very inconsistent goal record. Fine, he scores against Rangers and Celtic, fine, but doesn't seem to do it against the smaller teams on a consistent basis. I think that's a fair comment. I would probably say in the upwards of 6+ million. Would you agree?
Yeah, definitely. I think Aberdeen. If I was Aberdeen, I'd be earmarking him as a big sale, probably down south. I mean, I must say I'm one that if people had said, right, you can sign one, Shankland and Majowski, which one do you take? I'd probably have taken him, just because he fits the model overall better, being younger, and I think he'd come in and do a job, and then we'd be able to sell him on. Whereas if we signed Shankland, we'll probably be his last big move. So, if he was to come in, he would be the big money signing if we were to get him. And I don't think they'll do that because of the risk. Like you say, that he maybe doesn't set the heather alight as much. He's kind of similar. He's similar to Shankland in that he's not got a great long-term record, but his short-term record is great. I feel like Shankland's a better bet in terms of. I kind of feel like he might score more goals overall. Although I don't think it would be huge. I'm sure, like I say, I'm pretty certain that given the chances we'd give him, that Miovski would score a lot as well. But I agree, it would probably be somewhere 6 to 8 million. But he's getting linked. He's been linked with teams like Southampton. I think he's been linked with teams in Italy as well. So I would expect that one of these places will probably be his destination.
I would need to agree with that. I don't think it's a feasible option. I think we'll get Romani cheaper than we would get for Miovski.
Well, one of the reasons I like Romani is because he's got a lot of similar traits to Miovski, so that's one of the reasons I'm quite a fan. I think the price is probably not too dissimilar. We'll get Romani slightly cheaper because there won't be an Aberdeen tax getting added for the fact that they're selling to us. So yeah.
What fee do you expect us to pay for Conor Barron?
To be honest, if Aberdeen are asking for $500,000, I would just pay it because I think he's worth it for a starter. And I just think I think it'll foster good relations, which I think is a plus. One of the things that I want to see is us improving our working relationships with the other teams. There's been a lot of years of bitterness. I think leave that to the fans to do, and the board should be all about business. That has improved, I think, a little bit over the years, so that is a plus. But yeah, I wouldn't really be bother haggling. Is it going to? How much are we really going to save on that? I feel like we're, if we're the big club we say we should just be like, okay, right, fine, cool, here, have your $500,000. Because, as I say, ultimately, I feel like the player is worth that, so therefore that's fine. I would be happy paying that, but see how it shakes out.
I think with the moves recently for Scott Wright and Ross McCrory, I think that has kind of bridged a gap, if there even was a gap there between the clubs in the first place. He's kind of a comment, and he's just said $500,000 in the grand scheme of things is little risk, and even current abilities. I'm really happy. I think he's a direct replacement for Ryan Jack, a fitter version.
Yep.
Maybe a more complete midfielder. I think Ryan Jack was a very good specialist number 6. That could go to an 8 if needed to. But I think Conor Barron's got a higher ceiling. I think we keep him for a couple of seasons and then sell him on. I'm really happy that Rangers have managed to get a deal done. So
me too. Yep.
What role do you expect Ross McCausland and Zach Lovelace to have next season? Is there anybody from the youth academy that you think can make the breakthrough?
I expect McCausland to fight for a place. He had a decent season, so he should be in the manager's mind. I expect the manager will probably be saying similar things to him, that the shirt's there to be won if he plays well. It will be tougher for him. We're looking to improve the wing areas. Right wing has been a sore spot with fans for a long time. I think the broad consensus is we hadn't had a decent or specialist right winger since Candace, other than Scott Wright. Although a lot of people tend to just not count him as being not good enough. So yeah, it's definitely. Yeah, I think he will play games. He will be an option. So it just depends on how he continues his development. If he gets better, In terms of Lovelace, I've honestly no idea. Obviously, he's been injured a lot this year, so we'll see how that goes. He had was it at least one or two decent games that he did play? Was it the beginning of the season he got a couple of games, or was it last season? Or the season before last, one or two. He did get a couple of games, and he seemed quite bright. So that maybe depend on who's going to be there. It does look like, as I say, we're potentially going to have 4 strikers in the first team squad, so that potentially limits his options. In terms of the younger players, I mean, I must be honest, I don't know a lot of the B team guys.
Yeah.
It's mostly the guys that are already in the first team squad. So from them, I mean, I'd like to see King get some game time. I really think he's been badly treated this season in a way, because he came in the year before when we were at really difficult time, and I thought did really well given the position he was in. Obviously, I mean, overall it wasn't good, but I thought he did the best he could, being 17-18 and getting thrown in to Champions League games against Liverpool with James Sands as his partner. So I think anyone who is overly giving him a hard time is bang out of order. I thought he did his best for that. And then he played a whole bunch of games in general. And then this season, it was as if he just got totally forgotten about. I don't understand why he wasn't in cup games or something somewhere. So, I mean, that says one of two things. Either people don't think he's good enough, in which case, sell him. He's an asset. We'll get some money for him. A young player with Champions League experience, you can do that. Or if you think he could still play, then we should put him out on loan and so he can play first team football. Put him to a team that will play him every week. So he's what I'd like to see. And then obviously we've got Devine. He had a decent season at Motherwell, so I think again I would like to see him getting minutes. If we're selling Tav, then there's a right back spot to win. So that'll be up to Clement if he wants to bring someone in, or maybe he gives Devine the opportunity to take that position. We've also got Fraser that got some minutes, so hopefully we see some minutes for him. He's going to have 2 players ahead of him. I do think we'll probably not see a lot of the midfield lads, McKinnon and Lowry, and I forgot the other lad's name. Who was the other one that played? Bailey Rice. Right. I think we'll probably struggle to see them again, just because we don't play players enough. So, I personally, I don't think Lowry's good enough, so I would probably sell him, to be honest. Right. I think he didn't do enough at Hearts. He was okay without making himself a first team player. So if he's not going to do that there, then he'll struggle here. And yeah, McKinnon and Rice will probably get a handful of minutes somewhere. But I imagine that it'll be the same as most seasons. We'll probably not see a lot of them. Cosland will be the one that has the best chance. And maybe Devine in second again if that right spot's going to be open.
See, going back to Leon King, you seem quite a big fan of him. Where do you see his position? He played number 6 for Scotland at times.
Well, I mean, I've only really seen him play at centre back, so that's all I've really got to go on. If other people think he's good enough to be playing in as a mid, then by all means we could give him a go there. It's always good to have options. Again, I think it's good to have players that can play multiple positions. If he's able to pull off the technical aspects of playing, in that 6 role in terms of the passing and the vision and stuff, then it could be a really good option for Europe if you want to have someone that's there that can then drop into a back 3 and have the wingers pushing up, similar to what we did with Lundstrom. That was a really good system that worked really well in that European run. So, I'm a fan of that as a potential option when we're playing big clubs that we need to be solid against. So it could open up that kind of option to him. But it's not so much that I'm a fan of him in terms of. I mean, I think he's a solid player. I don't know whether or not he's a Rangers player yet, because the game, as I say, I am not judging him entirely on the games that he's played, on the basis of the context of how they were. You know, he wasn't coming into a team that was settled and then played horribly in the league. He was going into Champions League and these situations. So I'm not saying no to him on that basis. I just think that it's been really unfair that we had him in that situation and haven't rewarded him by giving him the opportunity to get the chance to play in a more normal context.
Colin Fagal and Fuse come in. Evening, lads. For this current Rangers side for one season, would you rather Gaza or Laudrup both in their prime? Doug, I'm going to throw that one to you first.
I mean, even Gaza in his prime was on the drink, so maybe Laudrup. It's a tough one.
I think you go Gaza just because I was a massive Gaza fanboy growing up. Gaza was my favourite football player. It was loved everything about him. His goal against Aberdeen where he took it off his hat trick, absolutely unbelievable.
Yep. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think that was on Heart and Hand. I think that was voted the Rangers' greatest goal, the Gaza goal against Aberdeen, which shows the high esteem that is held in. And indeed the player. I mean, he's technically one of the best. He's technically one of, if not the best British player of all time in terms of his technical ability. He's one of those players that just like in that Gaza played better than a drink. That's probably true. But it's hard to say no to him because he's just such a quality player. You could play him in a lot of different positions as well. So I think he probably edges it just because I think all round, you can do it all. But I mean, I think Laudrup in a Clement system would be amazing. So I mean, I'll say Gaza just because I think Gaza's probably all round a better player. But yeah, I mean, I'd happily take anyone at this stage of Rangers' lifetime.
Aye, definitely. It's Gaza all day for me. That sounds harsh. Brian Laudrup's probably the best winger I've seen in my life in terms of playing for Rangers, but it's definitely Gascoigne just because I'm a pure fanboy. Is there anything else? I don't really know if there's much else we need to cover. I think we've answered all the questions. If you get any points you want to bring up and you want to ask? Or?
Well, someone's asking asking about the Euros. Have you had any thoughts on the Euros thus far?
It's been okay. It's been I think it's been a good tournament to watch as a neutral. Scotland got a decent result last night, which was alright. I don't know where this came from in terms of everybody thought Scotland were going to get beat last night. I actually fancied their chances to take a win, if I'm being honest. I think we're more than capable of matching Switzerland. I know they've got Granit Xhaka and stuff in the middle of midfield, but the players we've got, you'd expect us to at least compete, and I think compete we did. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I've been enjoying it. A lot of the best games have come from the smallest teams thus far, which I'm a big fan of. It's just been a lot of excitement, lots of early goals as well. It's been good. So that's good. In terms of Scotland, I mean, obviously it was a huge disappointment in Game 1. Game 2 was a huge improvement. I do have to say I was disappointed in the end because I feel like that game was there for the taking. I feel like playing calmly and not being silly was the right approach in terms of like coming out of that game with a draw is a great is a good place to be for the last game to try and get a win to go through. But with the way the game went, if I was the manager in that game, I'd have been sitting there going, this game's there for the taking. We spent so much in the second half on top. I feel like being just a little bit more positive and potentially going for the win would have been the thing. I have no understanding why Shankland's coming on with 4 minutes to go. Why would you not give him 10, 15 minutes to do something? I mean, Adams was really good. He put loads of energy in. He was all over the place in terms of running about the park to be in positions to get the ball and keep the ball. So, he played really well. But, byproduct of doing all that was knackered to come the latter half of the second half. So I feel like, at 80 minutes, take him off, stick on Shankland, see if you can steal a goal and get that win. So I feel like if we'd been a little bit more bold, given how the game went, we could have come out with a little bit more. I have to also just point out, sorry, because I saw it a second ago, but just after our what player would you like to see? The Catalyst suggested Sibo, which is an amazing suggestion. I would love to see Sibo by Rangers. That'd be great. I'm sure no one would get frustrated with him.
Aye, I know. Right, well, I think we'll wrap up there. Billy and Bob will be back tomorrow night with the Rangers news. They'll be talking everything the sort of during the week, and then we're pre-recording the TAV pod tomorrow night. It was summed up very well in a Gallant Fuse Daily News show this morning. Everybody should go and check it out, where Colin was saying if Tav does leave, he's going to be in mourning for a week, and Scott Young turned around and says he's going to be celebrating in George Square for a week. So that will definitely be worth tuning in for on Saturday. Don't know what time we'll schedule it for, but like, subscribe, get your notifications on the go. Doug, thanks for joining me tonight.
Thanks very much. It's great to see you. Thanks for all the comments from everybody. I saw someone asking, is this on every night? Yes, we are on every night, so come and find us and get all the content. But yeah, thanks everyone for watching.
No, thanks for coming on again, mate. That was brilliant. Aye, we're on Monday to Friday at different times, so like, subscribe, turn on your notifications, and we'll see you tomorrow night. Remember, every night is Rangers Journal night.